everybody, Dr. Greg Persley here with Fix Your Belief Systems. Once again, where, as you know, we are talking about 5 major pillars of life every single episode: relationships, business or career, health, finances, and belief or faith. And I try to bring experts that I have met on my travels and my journeys that really encompass either one or more or all of those pillars. And today I have a very unique and very motivational and inspirational individual that I absolutely had to have on. And I'm so excited that he agreed to come on and be part of this podcast. But without further ado, I am going to introduce to you who I would consider a mentor, but also a friend. His name's Tim Ross. And if you don't know who Tim Ross is, then you have been missing out, because I didn't know who he was until about a month or so ago, and I was also missing out. Tim Ross has a business called Upset the World. He also has a podcast called The Basement. He is a preacher. He is a evangelist. He is a father. He is an inspiration, and he is trying to better the world around him, one person at a time. And I'm so excited that he is here. Thank you, sir, for being part of the Fix Your Belief Systems podcast.
I appreciate the invitation. I'm grateful to be with you. Thank you so much for your kind words.
You know, that's one of my favorite things about you is gratitude, grateful. You talk about that a lot in your podcast, which everybody needs to go and check that out, The Basement with Tim Ross. I've listened to multiple episodes at this point, and very insightful. And my favorite part about it is you never really know where it's going to go. It just kind of flows.
It does. Yeah. I have absolutely no idea where it's going. I really don't. Every episode. That's what I love about it.
It's interesting. You can tell, but you can't tell. It's interesting. You can tell, but you don't mind. Let's say that.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's
you're
really
like,
good.
No,
Yeah.
I'm glad, because there's a lot of structured ones that are like, okay, yeah, this is going to happen. And then, but it's very formal. I like conversations.
Me too.
That's what I like about you.
Yeah. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
So tell everybody a little bit, give us a little bit of history, how you became to be the absolute inspiration that you really are. How did you come to be who you are, Tim?
Well, man, I'll try to give you the real nutshell version. I was born and raised in Inglewood, California, to 2 amazing parents, Charles and Maxine Ross. Daddy worked for U.S. Postal Service for 33 years. Mom worked for the LAP for 30 years. My life goal was to be in law enforcement. I wanted to be a homicide detective. I ensured all throughout my adolescence and teenage years that I never got into trouble, because I knew through my mom that 2 detectives were going to go all the way back to kindergarten and work their way back up through your life. And if they found anything that was going to disqualify you from being on that force particularly, I needed to stay away from it. So I had a wonderful upbringing that didn't prevent me from experiencing trauma, though. I had a neighbor that sexually abused me for about a 6 to 8 month period of time. My older brother actually founded a gang in LA, and that led to environmental trauma, maneuvering through all of that. And then I gave my life to Jesus January 14th of 1996. That's really where the pivot begins. I preached my first sermon a month later. And so for almost 30 years, I spent inside the nonprofit sector, speaking in churches, and then leading a church as a lead pastor for 7 years, prior to making this drastic pivot that I'm in now for the last 18 or so months, where I'm a podcaster and a speaker to both corporations and to other business leaders.
First of all, man, I really like to say I appreciate the vulnerability, if I could talk. I appreciate you being vulnerable like that, because so many people hide parts of themselves because they're afraid of being judged.
Yep, absolutely.
And it really holds them back from being what they're really put here to be. I believe everyone here has a gift.
Yep.
I believe that the biggest travesty in life is when people settle and they don't push towards that gift, and they know it.
Yep.
So I appreciate you being vulnerable and being someone that's willing to say, I'm not perfect and
Yeah.
I've made mistakes and I've had things happen. And yet I use that to help myself grow.
Yeah.
Um, so what would you say, like, to people that are listening that know right now, they're thinking in their heads, they're thinking, there's parts of me I don't let out.
Yeah.
How does someone overcome that fear?
Well, it's first to acknowledge that it's a very scary thing to do. I actually teach corporations and businesses about the power of vulnerability. And the first thing I let them know is that it's the riskiest proposition they could ever encounter, right? And ever endeavor upon. To be vulnerable is to be seen, heard, and known, and hopefully still be loved. We are not in charge of that last part, right? But we are the ones that get to choose if we're going to be truly seen, heard, and known. It is up to the recipient of the gift that is that vulnerability that has been given to them to steward it well. The majority of people don't know how to do so because they haven't dealt with their own trauma and they haven't even broached their own vulnerability. So a lot of times when you're a vulnerable person, it triggers other people's inability to be vulnerable. And they usually get defensive or they usually repel the vulnerability that's being presented their way. So I would say that your need to be truly seen, heard, and known has to supersede the desire to feel rejected. Because the probability that you will be rejected for your vulnerability is 100%. But the probability that you can be the freest version of yourself if you choose to be vulnerable is also 100%.
I was listening to somebody, and I don't remember who it was, but they mentioned something. They said, the freest person in the room is the person that has no secrets.
That's
is the person
right.
that doesn't have to hide.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the ego and people putting up walls and fear of what other people are going to think is simply because of what you just said, of they don't feel, or they're too afraid of the possibility of the rejection that they may feel. But they have to understand, for the most part, that feeling of that fear is generally not something that will come to fruition. It's just a fear. It's not necessarily true. And number two, if someone rejects you, it's really coming from their fear, not you.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, talk into that a little bit.
Yeah. So the journey of my vulnerability is based on the sexual trauma that I experienced as a child, 8 years old, going through that. Obviously, to be sexualized at 8 years old, no minor should ever be exposed to anything like that. And then as I grew up, pornography was my medication. So I got exposed to pornography at 12. It became my drugs, alcohol, nicotine, and gambling, right? It was my all-inclusive addiction. And that led all the way through my late teens where I was highly promiscuous and all that kind of stuff. I actually share this in corporate settings, Dr. Greg, and you should see, like, everybody's like, how is this going to help my organization? Like, what are you even talking about right now? Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, what's going on here? Who brought this guy? Right. Yeah.
You're being paid to be here?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, but what's interesting is I talk about getting caught by my mom watching pornography at 19 years old, and the fact that that night that should have been filled with shame and guilt and condemnation actually led to a night where my younger brother got to share with my parents that he was abused by the same teenage boy. My mom shares that she was sexually harassed by her babysitters when she was 6. And then my dad shares that he was abused by the comic book store owner when he was 5 years old. So in one night, all these lights go on and no one's like covering themselves up like that. Those lights go on, but they're so warm. They're not the hot lights for exposure, right? The floodlights. They're these warm lights that come on and everyone is seen for who they really are. Everyone's heard without being cut off, and everyone's known. And then everyone's still loved. No one's being judged.
Well, not only that, you don't have to live a false idea of who you are. You don't have to live the idea of what they think I am. You can just live your truth. And nobody's perfect. I mean, nobody's perfect. So when you see someone that you look up to or that you think they have a perfect life, they've got some stuff going on. It may not be as impactful as what you are going through or whatever, but I'm just saying everybody's got something they're going through at every single point.
That's right.
So how do you take those things and, for lack of a better phrase, use them to your advantage to become greater and become better?
Yeah. So once I got into therapy, I realized that from the age of 8 years old, the subconscious narrative that literally drove my life was that vulnerability is dangerous. So you got to lie, you got to hide, and you can't let anybody know what you're really going through because they're going to reject you and dismiss you. And once I started going through therapy and breaking free from all those things, the narrative switched from very negatively, vulnerability is dangerous, to very positively, vulnerability is my superpower. And my little subscript parenthetically is, I am vulnerable at the risk of other people's comfort. I will no longer show up any less than the person I truly am, even if it risks your comfort. And from there, I was able to take vulnerability and normalize it, not just for my life, but for those around me as well. So once I started businesses, I made sure that vulnerability was at the forefront of how we were going to do business, not only with customers, but also with my employees as well. And we established what we called hot zones. It's my acronym for honesty, openness, and transparency. So the very foundation of the culture that we build within our organizations is built on us being hot guys and hot girls. We're going to be honest with each other, open with each other, and transparent with each other. If you ask us how we're doing, we're actually going to tell you. And we're not telling you for you to fix it. We're not telling you to have a counseling session. We actually want to be seen, heard, and known for who we are and where we are right now, understanding that we're resilient human beings and we're going to get through it. But we really want you to know what's going on with us, because without knowing that, then you show up for work a different way.
Of course, we're going to show up as a fake you.
That's exactly right. Right.
And the fake you isn't allowing all your gifts to really be out in the open, to where you can actually use those gifts to help yourself and the other people around you in the organization. I love the hot guy, hot girl. I love that. I may just start telling other people about that and tell them about it.
It's all good. Office. Please take it.
In my businesses, we have 7 core values, and one of them is transparency as well, because we want to be transparent. We want to be like, look, it's okay to tell it like it is. And it's okay to be honest with your situation, because we're all going to go through stuff. And that allows us, one of our other core values is family. So it allows us to be more like family, to where we can work with each other and help each other out. Because, business, a lot of times people want to make it cut and dry. It's black and white. You hit your numbers or you didn't. Well, maybe you didn't hit the numbers because you're dealing with some stuff in your personal life right now that you need to have some help with. So how can we as a company help you deal with that stuff, or help you, use that to your advantage in order to keep you around, because you do great for the company and you're a great human being. So that's what I love about that. So that's fantastic, man. Hot guys and hot girls. I love that.
Yes, sir.
So what other people that listen to this podcast are all about entrepreneurship, business, and becoming better versions of themselves. What have you found that, I guess, tips, tricks, strategies, help, whatever, really, I don't know, great, simple tools to help someone become the next version of themselves? Do you have any specific examples of that?
Yeah. So my encouragement to leaders, to entrepreneurs, to those that are looking to get to the next level is, it's always back on the inside of yourself. I help people get to the next best version of themselves from the inside out. There's something else that you need to go back in and uncover and or discover for you to get to the next version of who you are. And so the information is not external, it's always internal, right? And if we're honest with ourselves, what we can do is go back inside and say, you know what? I lack this, and or I need to work on that. I'm trying to close deals and I realize I talk too much. I need to listen more, right? I realize that I need to change this organization. I might need to be bold enough to make some changes with employees that started with me from the beginning. I'm going to have some courageous conversations and let some people know there is nothing wrong with them. The company has merely outgrown their capacity to lead in this role that they're in. And perhaps you've turned a blind eye to things that you should have addressed. And it just takes another skill set to be able to do that. So I always let everybody know, when you're ready to go further in your career, always go inside first, because it is from the inside out that we grow and get to the next step.
Yeah, I love that. One of my favorite sayings, and I say it all the time, and I bet you people know what I'm about to say already, but in my workout room on my wall, I have a statement that says, know thyself, know thyself, right? Any type of change comes from decisions and thoughts and emotions from inside, and understanding who you really are is the first part of that, like what you actually want. I believe, and you can speak into this and tell me if it's different, but I believe that most people are living someone else's life based on what they've been told, or what they told they couldn't do, or out of spite, or they're living somebody else's version of what that person thought they should be or do. So tell me, talk into that a little bit.
Yeah. So I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that statement. Most people the authentic them has been covered up by other people's opinions, other people's words, other people's behavior. And this starts from our family of origin, right? So our parents either uncovered us or they covered us, right? And when I say uncovered, they kept anyone else's opinions off of us, or they threw something on us. And so before you know it, here you have this young adult who has on, 15 layers of clothing, right? They got on underwear, long johns, pants, sweatpants over that. They got on a t-shirt, a jacket, a hoodie, a parka, and 14 hats, right? Like, and so what you're trying to do, what everyone is trying to do is not become a different person. What they're trying to do is shed the layers that have been tossed on them, the labels that have been tossed on them, the ideas that have been tossed on them, the systems that have been tossed on them, so they can get back to the version of themselves that is the most authentic version of themselves.
Authentic. I love that you said that. I was going to bring that up, because that's really what you're trying to do. You're trying to shed off the layers of the fake you in order to reveal the authentic you. And when you're okay with that, when you love you for who you are, then you don't care what other people try to tell you or say about you or whatever. You're just like, they just don't know who I am. They just don't know me.
That's right.
But I know
correct.
me. And if you don't know you, then it's going to bother you, because you're like,
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Absolutely. So I have so many people that will ask me, based on so much of the stuff that comes out of our podcast that turns into sound bites for social media. This person misunderstood you and they did a reaction video to you, and how do you feel about what they said? And I tell them I don't feel any way about what they said, because I haven't heard it. I don't read comments, not so that I can escape negative comments. I just don't read any comments. So I don't read positive comments and I don't read negative comments, because at the end of the day, I'm in a space that if I don't believe what I'm saying when I say it, then I should not care what people have to say after I've said it. So I'm putting art
not only
into
that,
the world. Yeah.
Not only that, though, you said you don't read it, which there's two ways to look at that. So it's all about perspective, right? Like when you say I don't read it, well, you can maybe read the words, but I don't read into it.
Good.
I don't absorb what they're saying because they're looking at it possibly from a different perspective based on their experiences and their beliefs and their understandings and their reality of whatever they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And so why would I react to something, especially when they're just using a keyboard, when there's no emotion? You can't tell what emotion they put into that.
Right.
It's like saying typing "I love you" and it could be "I love you," or it could be
right.
like, "Yeah, I love you." There's a big difference in inflection, right?
Huge. That's right.
So if you are looking externally for validation, and you're looking externally for, and when I say validation, I mean either good or bad. Because if you believe you're not worthy, then you're going to look for validation of that not worthiness.
That's correct.
When you're looking for that validation, how do you become aware? How do you become aware that you're doing that? And how do you turn that around and say, I know me, I like me, I love me, I know who I am and what I'm about, and my purpose and that sort of thing. So how do you do that?
Yeah. So I do believe that you have to grow to a point where, first of all, you love yourself and you believe in what it is that you're doing. I also believe that you have to have a support system around you of people that support you and encourage you and have the ability to offer advice and correction. So the truth of the matter is, even though I don't listen to whatever the comments are, positive or negative, from social media outlets, my friends and my family have the right to speak into anything I'm doing at any time. And if they say it, they have a full context to who I am because I'm fully seen, known, and heard by them. And so if they have something that they want to say in terms of affirmation or constructive criticism, I am so open to listen to that. And they've done it, and it's because they love me that they do it. And I feel protected by them and feel safe by them. I don't feel defensive around them when they have to speak certain things to me that even may be tough to hear because I know it's coming from a pure place. And so validation within and without is important. You just have to curate who those voices are.
All right. Hold on 1 second, too.
Yeah, no worries.
All right. So we're back. We could continue doing this conversation for hours. I mean, literally, I could talk to you. I love talking to you. You know how there's certain people that you just feel connected with. You just feel man, I could just sit and talk. Like, I want to come down into Texas, and I want to come down with my guitar, and I want to go sit around a fire and just hang out and chat with you and sing Kumbaya and play songs and just hang out and whatever. So what I'd like you to do, though, I ask a very similar question, if not the same question, to every guest I have on. And I love the responses, especially from people that are really, I always say playing at a high level, with people that have, figured a lot out about life and they're just really content and happy and that sort of thing. But one of the things that people try to define a lot is success. And so what I'd like to ask is, what is success to you? What is success to Tim Ross?
All right. This question is going to be answered through the lens of my faith. Okay. That's the only way I know how to answer this question. My definition of success is being obedient to whatever I feel like God's asking me to do. That is success for me.
You know what I call that I say act on your highest purpose or passion.
Good.
Always. And that's good. But that only comes from constant prayer, which a lot of people mistake. They think constant prayer is pray, 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 pray. Constant prayer is having a communication with.
That's right. That's right. And that's literally been my secret sauce. I mean, I've done several interviews in the last 24 to 36 hours. And I don't think anybody was prepared for me to say the words Holy Spirit as much as I did. Their eyes were getting wide. And I'm like, you asked the question and I know you want me to take credit for it, but I'm telling you right now, that's not the way I'm wired. Like, I didn't come up with this. I
A
didn't
lot
come
of
up
times
with
though,
these
people have,
ideas.
right. I feel that though. Like a lot of times people have this, uh, I don't know, preconceived notion about what that is. Holy Spirit, God, faith. Or
Yep.
even when I talk about the five pillars, we talk about relationships and business and health and finances and faith. And they go,
Right.
oh, religion. I go, no, no, no. Religion's
No.
a man-made construct of
Yep.
what of changing faith.
Yeah.
Faith is believing in something that you cannot see.
That's
That's what
correct.
faith is. It's
That's correct.
belief in, I always call it downloading things from the universe, from the ether. That's what the
Yeah.
Holy Spirit is. The Holy Spirit lives
Yeah.
within you.
Yep. That's correct. And so that is literally my sensitivity to always be willing to risk it all for that prompting is the
Mm,
reason why in hindsight it looks like I've been very, very successful or have been living this very charmed life. I have a high school diploma, Dr. Greg. I'm not sitting up here with a master's and a PhD in anything. But I am sensitive enough to know that if I feel like he's telling me to do something, I'd rather move on that and be wrong than sit on it and think I'm right.
mm. It's so good though, because when you're in that constant communication, and this is where I think people mess up, they think God or the universe or light energy, or source energy, or what do they want to call it, it's the same thing. They think that it's going to be like this voice pounding into their head. And maybe it is occasionally for some people, and they would describe it like that. But for the majority of the time, it's a whisper, it's an
Yeah.
inkling, it's a
Yep.
feeling.
Yep.
I feel like, and that's when I say act on your highest passion or purpose. It's that feeling of like, I just feel like I need to call this dude, or I need to
Mm.
send a
Yep.
text, or
Yep.
like I did that with you earlier this week. I was like, I just felt like man, and here's what's funny. I didn't even know we were scheduled today. And you said, I'm looking forward to our conversation tomorrow. And I went, he's on my schedule tomorrow. So,
Yeah.
but it's acting on those feelings, not knowing why. But if you have an idea of your purpose and you tear those layers away and you have that authenticity of knowing who you are and you have a desired result, that's when you go, what needs to happen to get there? And then you have faith. That's what faith is.
Good.
Just
Yeah.
push me in that direction. Show me what needs to happen. Would you
That's
add
right.
anything or change anything to that?
No, I really do believe that. For those people that wouldn't have a context to what I mean by the Holy Spirit, for what it means to be prompted to do something, it is what you would call it. It is the gut feeling. It is the something told me to. I feel like the Holy Spirit's been called something more than he's been called the Holy Spirit throughout humanity, right? Throughout human history. So I want people to just look for those clues, look for those little drops where it's like, I don't know what made me do it, but I felt like I was supposed to do this and then it just worked out. I don't know what made me call this person and take 20% off of my price, but that led to this being my biggest account. And that's why I'm able to get into the Asian market. You have no idea, but this life is supposed to be an adventure, and I would not play small, like risk big. You know what I mean? And if you fail, find out what didn't work and then try something else. Like I always tell people, if you can't do it brave, do it scared, but do it. Because that's when you find out. That's when you find out what's on the inside of you. That's also when you find out what's on the other side.
Right. Exactly. Well, dude, this has been, and like I said, we could talk for hours. I could just sit here and ask you question after question, but I really appreciate you being here. Any final thoughts that you would say to anybody listening?
Yeah. Based on the 5 pillars that you mentioned, I would just encourage everybody to reinvestigate those for themselves. All 5 of those things, reinvestigate all of them for themselves, and be willing to be curious enough to figure out if there's more. Never settle. Always be curious to see if there's more.
Take action, be curious, be authentic. Dude, Tim, love it. Tim, it has been an absolute pleasure having you here. How can people find out more about you and what you're doing? Where would you like to send them?
Yeah. So on Instagram, Upset the Gram. On TikTok, Upset the Talk. On YouTube, The Basement with Tim Ross. You can download the B-Side app, which is an app we just launched on November 3rd that is helping Voices of Vulnerability aggregate so we can help people be seen, heard, known, and still loved. And then finally, you can go to my website, UpsetTheWorld.com.
And we have all those links in the description of this show. Go and check him out. You got to become your authentic version of who you really are meant to be. And Tim can help you do that through all of the things he's doing. Love your podcast. Been listening to it a lot. Lots of value. Once again, much love. Thank you for being here. Everybody,
Absolutely.
This has been another episode. Yeah, another episode of Fix Your Belief Systems, where we talk about building your life on your terms, your dream life on your terms, and talking about the 5 major pillars: relationships, business, health, faith, finances. And this has been an absolute pleasure and joy. Thanks for being here, Tim. Everybody,
Yes, sir.
until next time, this has been another episode of Fix Your Belief Systems with your host, Dr. Greg Pursley, also known as Dr. G. And we will be back at you. Come and tune in next week, just like every week, to get more of learning how to be the best version of you can be.